We proved why. Captain Saracen had always thought the Galactic Council was being dramatic when they classified Earth as a Class X Deathworld in their official records. Sure, humans had to deal with things like hurricanes, earthquakes, and the occasional bear attack, but calling their home planet a Deathworld seemed like overkill. That was before she found herself standing in the pristine halls of the Council's flagship vessel, watching as delegates from 12 different species recoil in horror at the mere mention of her planet's gravity rating. The Zephyrians couldn't even breathe in anything above 0.3 standard atmosphere, and the crystalline Vordans literally cracked under pressure exceeding their homeworld's gentle 0.5 G environment. What really drove the point home wasn't the gasps of terror when she mentioned that humans regularly survived falls that would pulverize most galactic citizens, or even their shock at learning that Earth's weather systems could generate winds strong enough to level cities. It was the dead silence that followed her casual comment about how her morning jog included a route through what the Council had classified as an active geological hazard zone. To Sarah, it was just Central Park. To them, it was apparently a hellscape where death lurked behind every tree and rock. She was beginning to understand that maybe, just maybe, humans weren't quite as normal as they'd always assumed. The meeting had started innocently enough. Earth had been invited to join the Galactic Council after 3 years of careful diplomatic contact, and Sarah was the first human ambassador to set foot on a Council vessel. She'd spent months preparing for cultural differences, studying alien customs, and learning basic phrases in 17 different languages. What she hadn't prepared for was being treated like a walking natural disaster. Ambassador Chen, Counselor Vextai said, his translator working overtime to convert his whistling language into English, we must discuss the complications of your species' integration into Council society. Sarah straightened in her specially reinforced chair. Apparently, standard Council furniture was made for beings who weighed about as much as a house cat. I'm here to address any concerns you might have. The Councilor's feathers turned a pale yellow, which Sarah had learned meant anxiety. Your preliminary reports indicate that humans consume organic matter that has been exposed to thermal radiation? You mean, cooking? Sarah asked, confused. Yes, we cook our food. A collective shudder ran through the assembly. The delegate from Kepler 442b actually fainted, his gelatinous form puddling onto the floor where his assistants quickly began scooping him up. Thermal radiation is lethal to most life forms, Counselor Vextai explained patiently. The fact that humans not only survive exposure but actively seek it out for sustenance is disturbing. Sarah was beginning to see the problem. On Earth, fire is a tool. We've been using it for hundreds of thousands of years. Fire, repeated the counselor, and his translator made us sound like broken glass. You speak of this as if it were commonplace. It is commonplace. Most humans interact with controlled fire multiple times per day. This time, 2 more delegates had to be carried out. Perhaps, said Counselor Vextai, consulting his notes with trembling hands, we should discuss your planet's atmospheric composition. Sarah nodded. This seemed safer. Earth's atmosphere is roughly 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and 1% other gases. The silence that followed was deafening. Did you say, oxygen? The question came from Dr. Zixera, the Council's leading xenobiologist. Her mantis-like form was perfectly still, which Sarah had learned indicated extreme shock. Yes. Is that unusual? Oxygen is a corrosive gas, Dr. Zixera said slowly. It breaks down molecular bonds. It's used in industrial processes to dissolve metals. Your species breathes liquid fire. Sarah blinked. She'd never thought of it that way. But we need oxygen to survive. That's what makes it so terrifying, Dr. Zixera whispered. The meeting continued downhill from there. Every aspect of human life that Sarah described sent the Council into new paroxysms of horror. The fact that humans lived on a planet where the ground regularly shook, where water fell from the sky with enough force to kill, where the very air could freeze you solid or cook you alive depending on the season. And this is normal for humans? Counselor Vextai asked after Sarah finished explaining weather patterns. Well, yeah. We adapt. We build shelters, wear appropriate clothing, and avoid dangerous areas during extreme weather. You adapt to conditions that would exterminate entire civilizations. I guess we do. The counselor made a note on his pad. And your planet's gravity? Standard Earth gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. 3 more delegates had to be hospitalized. That's nearly 10 times the galactic average, Dr. Zylaxians said, her voice barely above a whisper. How do you even move? Sarah stood up to demonstrate, and the sudden motion caused half the remaining council members to dive for cover. Like this? When they finally emerged from behind their protective barriers, Councillor Vextai cleared his throat. Ambassador Chen, while we appreciate Earth's interest in joining the Council, I'm afraid there are certain logistical challenges. Such as? Well, for starters, no other species in the galaxy can survive on your planet for more than a few minutes. The gravity alone would crush most of our members. The atmospheric composition would dissolve their respiratory systems. And the temperature variations would cause immediate thermal shock. Sarah was starting to feel frustrated. But Earth isn't that bad. Billions of humans live there just fine. That's exactly our point, Dr. Zylaxians interjected. Your species has evolved to thrive in conditions that represent a perfect storm of lethality. You're apex predators from a world that actively tries to kill everything on it. We're not apex predators, Sarah protested. We're just humans. Ambassador Chen, Councillor Vextai said gently, let me put this in perspective. The deadliest world previously catalogued by the Council was Nightmare 7, a planet where the rain is acid and the plants shoot poison darts. It's rated as a Class C Deathworld. Your planet is classified as Class X because it's literally off the scale. But we have art, music, poetry. Made by beings who consider volcanic eruptions to be natural phenomena to be lived around rather than fled from, Dr. Zylaxians added. Your species' greatest architectural achievements are built on active fault lines. You have sporting events in environments that would be considered torture chambers on most worlds. Sarah thought about this. You mean like football? Football? It's a game where 2 teams of heavily armored humans run into each other at high speed while fighting over a small ball. The silence stretched so long that Sarah wondered if her translator had broken. For entertainment, Councillor Vextai finally managed. It's very popular. We have professional leagues, university competitions, and even children's teams. Children, Dr. Zylaxians repeated faintly. Your offspring participate in ritualized combat. Well, when you put it like that. An alarm began blaring throughout the ship. The council members immediately began evacuating the chamber in an orderly but rapid fashion. What's happening? Sarah asked. Councillor Vextai paused at the exit. Emergency protocols, Ambassador. We're detecting elevated stress hormones from the human representative. Stress hormones? Your species releases chemical compounds when agitated. These compounds are toxic to most council members in even small concentrations. Sarah looked around the rapidly emptying chamber. I'm not even upset. This is just mildly annoying. That's what makes it so frightening, came the counselor's voice over the intercom as the blast doors sealed shut. Alone in the chamber, Sarah sat back down in her reinforced chair and tried to process what she'd learned. Apparently, everything she considered normal about life on Earth was, from a galactic perspective, absolutely insane. Humans weren't just tough by accident, they were the product of a planet that had spent billions of years creating the perfect killing machine. The intercom crackled to life. Ambassador Chen? Yes, Counselor. We're going to need some time to adjust our integration protocols. In the meantime, we have a few questions about human society. Of course. Our records indicate that humans engage in activities called extreme sports. Could you elaborate? Sarah grinned. This was going to be fun. Well, there's base jumping, where people throw themselves off cliffs wearing fabric wings. The sound of multiple beings fainting echoed through the intercom. Then there's free climbing, where humans scale vertical rock faces using only their hands and feet. More fainting sounds. Oh, and deep-sea diving, where we descend to crushing depths that would implode most ships. Please stop, came a weak voice over the intercom. There's also skiing, where we strap wooden boards to our feet and hurtle down mountainsides at speeds that would be fatal if we hit anything. We get the picture, Counselor Vextai interrupted. Perhaps we could discuss something less traumatic. What about human recreational activities that don't involve defying death? Sarah thought for a moment. Well, there's hiking. That sounds peaceful. Humans walk for hours through wilderness areas filled with dangerous animals, poisonous plants, and unstable terrain, carrying everything they need to survive on their backs. Silence. Reading, the counselor suggested hopefully. We do enjoy reading. Many humans read in challenging environments, on beaches under intense solar radiation, in aircraft traveling at hundreds of miles per hour, or in submarines deep beneath the ocean's surface. Do you do anything that doesn't involve mortal peril? Sarah considered this seriously. We sleep. Thank the stars. Finally, something normal. Of course, human sleep cycles require us to remain unconscious and vulnerable for approximately 8 hours at a time, during which we're completely helpless and often experience vivid hallucinations we call dreams. And you do this, voluntarily? We have to. If we don't sleep, we die. Your species' basic biological functions are life-threatening, Dr. Zixera observed over the intercom. I guess they are. Several hours passed while the council conducted what they called emergency xenopsychology consultations. Sarah used the time to think about her homeworld from an alien perspective. Maybe they had a point. Earth was a pretty dangerous place when you really thought about it. The weather alone could kill you in dozens of ways, from hurricanes and tornadoes to blizzards and heat waves. Then there were earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, and floods. And that was before you even got to the wildlife. Bears, wolves, sharks, venomous snakes, poisonous spiders, disease-carrying insects, and 1,000 other creatures that could end your life in an instant. Even the plants were dangerous: poison ivy, deadly nightshade, oleander, and countless others that could kill you just by touching them. But humans didn't just survive on Earth. They thrived. They built cities in deserts and on fault lines. They farmed in floodplains and on mountain slopes. They sailed across storm-tossed oceans and trekked through frozen wastelands. They didn't just adapt to Earth's dangers, they conquered them. The intercom crackled again. Ambassador Chen? Yes? We've been consulting our xenopsychology experts, and we have a theory about your species. I'm listening. We believe humans may be the first naturally occurring weapon system to achieve sentience. Sarah laughed. That's ridiculous. Is it? Consider the evidence. Your species evolved on a world that constantly tried to kill everything on it. Over millions of years, only the most resilient, adaptable, and aggressive individuals survived to reproduce. Your evolution was essentially an arms race against your own planet. But we're not weapons. We're explorers, artists, scientists, who conquered their homeworld so thoroughly that they began looking for new challenges among the stars, Dr. Zixera interjected. Your species' first instinct upon achieving space travel was to look for other worlds to explore and potentially colonize. That's just natural curiosity. Ambassador Chen, Counselor Vextai said gently, your species' idea of recreational activities includes jumping out of perfectly functional aircraft, descending into underwater caves, and climbing mountains that kill professional climbers. You seek out danger because your homeworld trained you to see mortal peril as a problem to be solved rather than a situation to be avoided. Sarah had to admit they had a point. So what does this mean for Earth's membership in the Council? Well, the counselor said slowly, we've been discussing that. The consensus is that while humans are fascinating from a xenological perspective, your species presents certain challenges to galactic civilization. Because we're too dangerous? Because you make everything else look dangerous by comparison. Did you know that the Galactic Council has never experienced a war? The concept of organized violence between sapient species was completely foreign to us until we encountered humans. We're not at war with anyone. No, but your history is filled with conflicts that would be considered extinction-level events by Council standards. The fact that your species not only survived these wars but learned from them and grew stronger is unsettling. Sarah was beginning to understand the scope of the problem. Humans weren't just physically tough, they were psychologically adapted to a level of stress and danger that would break most other species. From a galactic perspective, they were walking weapons of mass destruction. There is one possibility, Dr. Zixara said hesitantly. What's that? The Council has been facing an unprecedented crisis. There's a region of space we call the Shattered Zone, an area where multiple stars have gone supernova, creating a maze of radiation fields, gravitational anomalies, and spatial distortions. We've lost contact with 17 colony worlds in that region. And no Council species can survive long enough in the Shattered Zone to mount a rescue operation. The radiation alone would be fatal within hours. The gravitational stresses would tear apart our ships. The temperature variations would cause immediate system failures. Sarah was starting to see where this was going. But humans might be able to survive it. Your species' natural radiation resistance is approximately 40 times the galactic average. Your gravity tolerance is off the charts. And your temperature adaptation range covers conditions that would be lethal to every other known species. You want us to go into the Shattered Zone. We want to offer Earth a unique position in the Council, Councillor Vextai said. Instead of standard membership, you would become our first search and rescue corps. Your species would be responsible for operations in environments too dangerous for other Council members. Basically, you want us to be the galaxy's emergency response team. In a manner of speaking, yes. Sarah considered this. It was actually perfect. Humans love challenges, and this would give them the ultimate challenge, exploring and rescuing people in the most dangerous regions of space. It would also solve the integration problem, since humans would be working primarily in areas where no other species could survive anyway. I think Earth would be very interested in that role, she said. Excellent. We'll begin preparations immediately. Fair warning, though, the Shattered Zone is considered absolutely lethal. Even by our standards, it's unsurvivable. Counselor. Yes, Ambassador. Sarah grinned. You're talking to someone from a Class X Deathworld. I think we can handle it. The next few weeks were a flurry of activity. Earth's space program, which had been struggling with budget cuts and political interference, suddenly found itself with unlimited funding and access to advanced alien technology. The first human-crewed ship designed for Shattered Zone operations was built in record time. Sarah found herself commanding the Earth vessel Endurance, equipped with every piece of protective technology the Council could provide and crewed by volunteers who had been selected for their experience in extreme environments. Her first officer was Maria Santos, a former deep-sea rescue diver. Her chief engineer was David Kim, who had spent 5 years working on oil rigs in the North Sea. Her medical officer was Dr. James Running Bear, who had previously worked in disaster zones around the world. Everyone ready? Sarah asked as they approached the edge of the Shattered Zone. Radiation levels are already at what the Council considers lethal, Maria reported. But they're well within human tolerance. Temperature variations are extreme, David added. But the ship's systems are handling it fine. I'm detecting elevated stress hormones from the Council observers, Dr. Running Bear noted with amusement. The aliens had insisted on monitoring the mission from a safe distance about 50 light-years away. Let's show them what humans can do, Sarah said, and ordered the ship forward. The Shattered Zone was unlike anything Sarah had ever seen. Space itself seemed broken here, twisted into impossible shapes by gravitational forces that defied comprehension. Stars that should have been billions of miles apart appeared to be dancing around each other. Radiation storms painted the darkness in sheets of deadly color. It was beautiful. First colony world is dead ahead, Maria reported. But there's a problem. What kind of problem? It's inside a gravity well that's fluctuating between 1 and 15 standard gravities every 30 seconds. Sarah laughed. That's not a problem. That's Tuesday on Earth during earthquake season. The rescue operation that followed would become legendary in galactic history. The human crew navigated gravitational anomalies that would have torn apart any other ship, withstood radiation levels that would have killed most species instantly, and worked in temperature extremes that ranged from nearly absolute zero to hot enough to melt steel. They found the colonists, a group of crystalline beings called the Resonance, trapped in a failing habitat on a world where the ground itself was unstable due to tidal forces. The aliens were barely alive, their crystalline structures cracking under stresses that would have been fatal to any other species. "We need to evacuate them immediately," Dr. Running Bear reported. "But the shuttle bay doors are jammed by gravitational distortion." "Can we fix it?" Sarah asked. "Someone would have to go outside and repair the mechanism manually. In 15 gravity conditions. During a radiation storm. While the ship is experiencing temperature swings of several hundred degrees." "So, a normal day for a human," Maria observed. David Kim was already suiting up. "I've worked in worse conditions. Remember that oil rig in the middle of Hurricane Katrina?" "That was different," Sarah protested. "This is space." "Space with weather," David grinned. "Even better." The repair took 3 hours. David worked methodically in conditions that the Council later calculated had a 100% fatality rate for any other known species. When he finished, the evacuation proceeded smoothly. "How is this possible?" came a transmitted message from the Council observers. "Our computers show that every member of your crew should be dead." "We're from Earth," Sarah replied. "We don't die easy." The rescue mission was a complete success. All 17 lost colonies were evacuated, their populations saved from certain death. The human crew suffered no casualties and only minor injuries, mostly from David Kim accidentally walking into a bulkhead during a particularly violent gravitational flux. When they returned to Council space, they found a fleet of ships waiting for them. Representatives from every member species had come to witness the return of the first expedition to successfully penetrate the shattered zone and return alive. "This is unprecedented," Counselor Vextai announced over the communication channel. "No species in galactic history has ever survived conditions like those you just endured." "It wasn't that bad," Sarah replied. "Kind of reminded me of camping in Yellowstone during wildfire season." The silence that followed lasted for several minutes. "Ambassador Chen," Dr. Zixera finally said, "on behalf of the Galactic Council, I would like to formally apologize." "For what?" "When we classified your world as a Class X Deathworld, we thought we were being dramatic. We now realize we were being conservative." Sarah laughed. "So what happens now?" "Now," Counselor Vextai said, "we officially recognize humans as the galaxy's first and only search and rescue corps. Your species will be responsible for operations in environments too dangerous for any other form of life." "And Earth's membership in the Council?" "Full membership, with a special designation. You'll be our first member species classified as beneficial hazard." "I'm not sure how I feel about that." "It means that while your species is technically a walking natural disaster, you're our walking natural disaster. And after what you just accomplished, we couldn't be happier to have you on our side." As the Endurance docked with the Council flagship, Sarah reflected on the strange turn her life had taken. She'd come here as Earth's first ambassador, hoping to secure humanity's place among the stars. Instead, she discovered that humans were cosmic anomalies, the products of a world so dangerous that it had created a species capable of surviving anything the universe could throw at them. But maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and it needed someone who could handle that danger. Someone who looked at a radiation-soaked hellscape torn apart by gravitational anomalies and saw just another day at the office. Someone from Earth. As she walked through the Council station, Sarah noticed that the other species no longer looked at her with fear. Instead, there was something else in their expressions: relief. Relief that the monsters from the Deathworld were on their side. She could live with that. After all, she was human. She could live with anything. 6 months after the Shattered Zone rescue, Sarah found herself back in the Council chambers, but this time the atmosphere was entirely different. The reinforced chair had been replaced with a standard human-sized seat, and the other delegates no longer dove for cover when she moved. Instead, they leaned forward with interest whenever she spoke. "The Helix Nebula situation is deteriorating rapidly," Counselor Vextai announced, his feathers now showing the deep blue of confidence rather than the pale yellow of anxiety. The stellar collapse is accelerating, and we have 47 research stations that need immediate evacuation. What's the timeline? Sarah asked, reviewing the data on her tablet. 18 hours before the neutron star's magnetic field reaches lethal intensity, Dr. Zylaxians replied. The radiation output will be approximately 3,000 times normal levels. Sarah did some quick mental calculations. That's well within human tolerance. What about the gravitational effects? Tidal forces will reach approximately 30 standard gravities at the closest research station. Challenging, but manageable. What's the real problem? Counselor Vextai's feathers shifted to a darker shade of blue. The stations are inside the nebula itself. The electromagnetic interference will make navigation impossible for our ships. Even our most advanced AI systems can't compensate for the distortion. Sarah grinned. Good thing humans don't rely entirely on technology. What do you mean? We'll navigate by dead reckoning and visual reference points. It's called flying by the seat of your pants. The translator struggled with that idiom, producing a sound like grinding metal. Several delegates looked confused. Human pilots can operate effectively even when their instruments fail, Sarah explained. We've been doing it for centuries. But how is that possible? Asked Commander Thrixera, the head of the Council's military forces. Without precise navigation data, you'll be flying blind. Not blind, Sarah corrected. Just without GPS. There's a difference. The mission brief took another 2 hours, during which Sarah learned that the Helix Nebula had been a primary research site for studying exotic matter. The 47 stations contained some of the galaxy's most brilliant scientists, representing 12 different species. The work they were doing was crucial to understanding the fundamental forces of the universe. We can't afford to lose that research, Dr. Zylaxians emphasized. Some of these experiments have been running for decades. How much data are we talking about? Sarah asked. Approximately 47 petabytes of experimental data, plus the scientists' personal research notes. We'll get it all, Sarah promised. Ambassador, Counselor Vextai said gently, we appreciate your confidence, but the conditions inside the nebula are truly extreme. The temperature fluctuations alone. How extreme? Ranging from near absolute zero to over 3,000 degrees Celsius, sometimes within minutes. Sarah nodded. Like working in a steel foundry during a blizzard. Challenging, but doable. The sound of several beings quietly fainting had become so common that the Council had installed special medical stations throughout the chamber. 3 days later, Sarah stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned Resilience, watching the Helix Nebula grow larger on the view screen. The ship was the second of Earth's specialized rescue vessels, designed specifically for operations in extreme environments. This time, her crew included specialists from around the globe, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a volcanologist who had spent years working inside active volcanic craters, Lieutenant Commander Alex Petrov, a former Russian submarine commander who had experience navigating beneath Arctic ice, and Chief Warrant Officer Amara Okafor, a Nigerian pilot who had flown rescue missions through Saharan dust storms. Entering the nebula's outer edge, reported their new navigation officer, Ensign Tommy Chin, no relation to Sarah, despite the name. He was a former wilderness guide who had led expeditions through some of Earth's most challenging terrain. Electromagnetic interference is at 400% of normal levels, Dr. Tanaka announced. Navigation systems are starting to experience errors. Switch to manual navigation, Sarah ordered. Tommy, you're our eyes now. Aye, Captain. I've got visual on the first marker beacon. What followed was a masterclass in human adaptability. As the ship penetrated deeper into the nebula, the electromagnetic interference grew so intense that even the backup systems began failing. The temperature swings were so severe that the hull plating expanded and contracted audibly, creating a constant symphony of metallic groans. Gravitational anomaly dead ahead, Alex reported. Looks like we're going to be pulling about 15 GS for the next 10 minutes. All hands, prepare for high G maneuvers, Sarah announced over the intercom. The council observers, monitoring from their safe distance, watched in amazement as the human crew continued working normally under conditions that would have been instantly fatal to any other species. Tommy navigated by visual reference points that were barely visible through the swirling nebula gases. Dr. Tanaka monitored the ship's systems manually, making constant adjustments to keep them operational. Alex handled the engine controls with the precision of a surgeon, compensating for gravitational effects that changed by the second. "First research station in sight," Tommy announced. "And Captain? You're going to want to see this." Sarah looked at the view screen and understood why the council had been so desperate to evacuate these stations. The research facility was a marvel of engineering, a crystalline structure that seemed to be feeding off the nebula's energy. But it was also clearly in distress, its outer sections flickering as the stellar collapse affected its power systems. "Life signs?" she asked. 12 Zephyrian researchers, all alive but showing signs of radiation exposure, Dr. Tanaka reported. "Their equipment is failing, but they're still trying to save their data." "Hail them," Sarah ordered. The response came in the form of high-pitched whistles that the translator converted into panicked speech. "Unknown vessel, this is Research Station Helix 7. Please maintain distance. Our containment fields are failing. We cannot guarantee your safety. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Resilience. We're here to evacuate you." "Impossible. The radiation levels are lethal to all known life forms." "We're not a known life form," Sarah replied. "We're from Earth. Prepare for docking." The rescue that followed became another legend in the growing mythology of human space operations. The Resilience crew worked in EVA suits through radiation fields that should have killed them instantly, manually transferring data cores while the research station's structure gradually collapsed around them. They completed the evacuation in just under 3 hours, saving not only the scientists but also decades of irreplaceable research. "How are you still alive?" gasped Dr. Vextai, the lead Zephyrian researcher, as he was helped aboard the Resilience. "Clean living and regular exercise," Sarah replied, which the translator rendered as something that sounded like confused static. The next 46 stations presented increasingly difficult challenges. Station Helix 23 was located inside a gravity well so intense that time itself was dilated. The crew experienced 4 hours of subjective time while only 20 minutes passed in the outside universe. Station Helix 31 was surrounded by a cloud of exotic matter that interfered with molecular bonds, requiring the crew to manually hold their equipment together while they worked. But it was Station Helix 40 that presented the real test. "Captain," Alex reported, his voice tense for the first time during the mission, "we've got a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The station is inside the neutron star's magnetosphere. The magnetic field is so intense it's literally tearing apart the atomic structure of normal matter." Sarah studied the readings. Even by human standards, this was dangerous. "How long can we survive in there?" "In theory, about 30 minutes before our molecular bonds start to break down." "How long do we need for the evacuation?" 45 minutes, minimum." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "Any ideas?" "We could try cycling in and out," Dr. Tanaka suggested. "Spend 20 minutes inside, then retreat to let our cellular structure recover." "That would take too long. The neutron star's collapse is accelerating. We've got one shot at this." "There is another option," Alex said quietly. "We could use the nebula itself as a shield." "Explain." "The exotic matter in the nebula has properties that might protect us from the magnetic field. If we could somehow coat the ship with it." "That's insane," Dr. Tanaka said. "The exotic matter is what's been interfering with our systems. But it's also what's been protecting the research stations," Alex pointed out. "Maybe we can use that." Sarah made the decision that would be studied in military academies for generations to come. "Do it." What followed was the most dangerous maneuver ever attempted by a human crew. The Resilience flew directly into a cloud of exotic matter, allowing the strange substance to coat the ship's hull. The crew experienced hallucinations, temporal displacement, and what Dr. Tanaka later described as the universe's worst case of the flu. But it worked. Protected by a shell of exotic matter, the Resilience penetrated the neutron star's magnetosphere and reached Station Helix 40. The scientists inside, a group of crystalline beings who had been studying the fundamental nature of reality, were saved with just minutes to spare. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Zylaxians when the crew returned to Council space. "The readings we're getting from your ship indicate that you survived conditions that should have resulted in immediate disintegration." "We're very stubborn," Sarah replied. The success of the Helix Nebula mission had far-reaching consequences. Within weeks, Earth received requests for help from across the galaxy. There was a colony ship trapped in a dark matter storm. A research vessel had been caught in a temporal anomaly. A diplomatic mission had been stranded on a planet where the atmosphere was made of liquid methane. Each mission pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible. The human crews faced challenges that would have been considered death sentences for any other species, and they not only survived but thrived. They developed new techniques, invented new technologies, and proved time and again that there was no environment too hostile for human ingenuity to overcome. But perhaps the most important change was in how the other species viewed humanity. The fear was still there, but it was now mixed with deep appreciation and respect. Humans were no longer seen as walking disasters, they were seen as guardians, protectors who could go where no one else could go and do what no one else could do. "The galaxy is a safer place because of your species," Counselor Vextai told Sarah during one of their regular briefings. "Your willingness to face the impossible has saved thousands of lives." "We're just doing what comes naturally," Sarah replied. "Earth taught us that the universe is dangerous, but it also taught us that danger can be overcome with courage, ingenuity, and a willingness to help others." "Is that why humans are so eager to help?" Sarah considered this. "Maybe. Or maybe it's because we know what it's like to be in trouble and need rescue. Earth has been trying to kill us for millions of years. We've learned to look out for each other." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Council's Deep Space Monitoring Station. "Captain, we think we may have found evidence of another spacefaring civilization. One that's been lost in dark space for an unknown period of time." Sarah grinned. A rescue mission into the void beyond the galaxy, where no star had ever shone and no planet had ever formed. It was exactly the kind of impossible challenge that made her grateful to be human. "When do we leave?" she asked. "The Council hasn't authorized a mission yet." "The risks are exactly the kind of risks humans were made to handle," Sarah interrupted. "Dr. Zylaxians, after everything we've accomplished, do you really think a little empty space is going to stop us?" There was a pause, then a sound that might have been alien laughter. "Captain Chen, I think you may be the most terrifying optimist in the galaxy." "I'll take that as a compliment." And as Sarah began planning humanity's boldest rescue mission yet, she reflected on how much had changed since that first meeting with the Galactic Council. Earth was still a Class X death world, and humans were still walking natural disasters. But now they were walking natural disasters with a purpose, to go where others couldn't, to face what others wouldn't, and to prove that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe was exactly what it needed. The void beyond the galaxy was waiting. And Sarah Chen couldn't wait to show it what humans could do.